What is one secret you have never told your parents and still don't plan on telling? I stole my mom's earrings to give to my girlfriend in 3rd grade. She never found them. She probably didn't think to look for them on a little girl. The time I found their home movie when I was looking for something to enjoy alone. Sounds like you did find something to enjoy alone. My grandmother had a collection of fairly expensive rings, and when she died she left one to every woman in the family. I was 13 and told not to wear mine out of the house because it was a bit loose on me. I did and lost it within a month of her death. Every now and then my mom asks about it and I'm just like, yeah, it's in a box in one of my drawers. I don't wear it because I don't want to lose it. Or your mom found it and is waiting for you to confess. My sister had an abusive boyfriend. I found out one day from a mutual friend, her roommate, that was worried about her and came to tell me. I asked her about it, she denied it. She had marks she made up excuse for. She said she fell at the gym. So that night I decided I would have a talk with this butthole. By talk I mean scare the living crap out of him with a bat. What I did not know was that my dad heard me and friend talk about it in the garage. I got to the apartment my sister and our mutual friend shared to find my father had beaten up abusive butthole to a pulp with a coffee mug. Guy was cut all over the face and crying. I helped dad clean up the place with the roommate. The 3 of us never told my sister what my dad did. The guy called her up and broke up with her. We never saw him again. Later she confessed he abused her but thought her threats of her calling the cops pushed and got him away. When I was 7 my mother broke a vase. I pretended to be the guilty just because I knew my dad would be angry with my mom and do crap. My mom used to yell at me and my siblings. Most of the time things got physical and that sucked. When I was little, my grandpa was watching me and my brother. We fell over and broke my sister's violin. My grandpa told my mom that he accidentally sat on it. I didn't understand why until I learned how abusive my mom was. That the month I was living a month in Spain was actually spent in jail. I had friends to post fake Instagram pictures for me too. Used to work in a prison. This happens all the freaking time. So many parents and family members thinking their burglar relative is in Scotland for a few weeks. That I got lost in the woods hiking. The police had to rescue me. It was a whole big scene. I texted them with the little battery life I had on my phone and told them I was staying at a friend's so that they wouldn't worry. The police eventually found me and I got home at 5 AM. They thought I was at a friend's and I've never told them the story. When my dad and I lived with his then fiance years ago, her oldest daughter and I used to fool around. My parents are divorced and my mum used to tell me to ask my dad for money for my hobbies, activities, etc. I never told her I stopped doing that when I was 15 because I was told that I was the reason his wife couldn't buy herself anything nice. It was his all complete and utter BS. That kind of crap sucks. My mom received child support from my dad even though they had split custody, and she used to tell me that he ought to pay more for us kids, school supplies, clothing, etc. while she didn't work and used the money to pay rent and go out to eat. I stole my mom's credit card when I was 13 to pay for a RuneScape membership. Grew up with parents who were divorced. Lived with my mom and stepdad. Dad was a cokehead but took me every few weekends and I loved him very much still. At 14 my stepdad was killed and my mom became an absent closet alcoholic. My dad got his crap together for me so he spent 2 years in a live-in rehabilitation home and my mom left me alone in our family home from ages 14-16 to pursue a new relationship in a town hours away. I kept them up to date on my good grades and fun extracurricular sports and whatnot, but I was lying. I fell into hard drugs and became addicted to coke and more and alcohol. I stole food so I could eat, but I also stole clothes and makeup and alcohol and everything else I wanted solely because I wanted it. I tried to kill myself multiple times, all in under 2 years. I don't plan on telling either of them that. When I was in primary school I was playing tag and thought it would be a good idea to go through the out of bounds area. Unfortunately there was a small rabbit hole or something that I tripped on and then fell and cut my forehead on a rock just on my hairline. Unaware of how bad the injury was, I just continued playing and at some point I ran past a teacher on duty and she said I had to go to the nurse. There was apparently blood dripping down my face. Turns out I had to get 3 stitches. Naturally, WorkSafe were all over this crap. They had to know how something so serious could have occurred and asked me to take them to where it happened. I was really scared and couldn't tell them I went out of bounds because I couldn't get in trouble. So I told them that I didn't really remember but would have a look anyway. Turns out that I found a bolt sticking out of a pole and blamed that. WorkSafe audited the whole school and found several more. So we were not allowed outside at lunchtime until it was fixed. The only problem was that the people who came to fix it couldn't start for a week. So every day for a week we were stuck in classrooms at lunch and recess time. All because of me. Still haven't told my parents. If you think about it, you could have saved a kid an injury. Hitting that would have hurt. As an adult, I was visiting my mom. She was divorced from her second husband and at the time she had a roommate. One day they were at work and I answered the phone in my mom's bedroom since it was the closest phone to me at the time. I needed to take a message and opened the top drawer of the nightstand on instinct to find a piece of paper. Big mistake. Right on top was a double-sided dong, a Hustler magazine on top of a stack of Hustlers, and a love letter to her roommate. Trust me when I say that I only read the first sentence or so and put it back in the drawer. Here we are almost 20 years later. Lives with a different woman now. She's never come out of the closet. I've never outed her and never will. It's her decision. I love her no matter what and I think I'll call her today because it's been a couple weeks. I fricked my cousin when we were in high school. Twice. Le cousin's dangerooks. I didn't slip in the shower. My girlfriend fell through the wall when I was banging her. I broke my mom's waterbed fricking. The same night she came home really drunk and when she woke up in the morning she thought she didn't remember. I skipped college for like 4 months. I was studying to become an English translator. The first month there was so freaking bad. I couldn't stand the subjects. And as I hadn't finished high school yet, exams left, I could not keep going to college anyways. So I spent the next months pretending I was going to class, while actually taking really long bus trips back and forth and reading books near the river. It's the douchiest thing I've done and I can't let my parents know. I've spent over $1,000 on adult toys for myself in the span of 2 years. Bad Dragon is a heck of a drug. In 1989 I got a tax return in the mail for $250. I was 13 at the time. I opened up a bank account and deposited the money. My parents probably sold some stocks for my college account and overpaid the eyes. When I was like 10-12 I threw a soccer trophy at my door during a tantrum. It put a hole in my side of the door, but not all the way through. I stuck a bumper sticker for my favorite college team over it. I'm 28 and it's still there. My mom found some used cotton swabs in the shower covered in a brownish red substance. She thought it was battery acid. She wanted to know what it was. She asked everyone in the house. No one knew. For some reason, it really bothered her. She went ballistic over it. Someone in this house knows what this is. They didn't just appear out of thin air, nobody knew. Later that day, it dawned on me that they were probably the tips I used to clean out my ear. Had a pimple or something, and it was dried blood. She was so mad. I didn't want to confess, so I never told her. I am now 45 and still haven't told her. She has even brought it up a few times over the years. I'm taking this one to my grave. When I was a junior in college, I lived off campus with 5 other guys in a shady neighborhood. One Tuesday night while a few of us were high and watching TV, a couple thugs busted our door, broke in, and robbed us at gunpoint. They were looking for a drug dealer. It turns out they had the wrong house. The dude from whom everyone at school bought their weed, coke, and pills lived one house over. None of us ratted him out because that would have brought more trouble. These guys tore our place apart looking for our non-existent stash, and when they couldn't find anything, they grabbed some random worthless decorations. Getting antsy to bounce. One of my roommates, big, burly, but usually reserved, grabbed one of the guys as they were leaving. He must have snapped. The thug turns around and lets 2 shots fly that both hit my friend. One in the leg, the other in the gut. He lived but was in the hospital recuperating for a month. None of us were able to recover from what happened, so after the short, fruitless investigation was over, we withdrew from school and went home. I stayed until the end of the semester. When I went home, I just told my parents that I wanted to transfer to a school closer to home. I never told them why I made that decision. I have 2 younger brothers. I didn't want my parents to be afraid to send them away to school. I didn't want my brothers to be afraid to leave home and explore. I used to play my Game Boy Advance every night for about 2 years. Never told my parents and certainly don't plan on it. You crazy kid. I'll post this for my brother, who is not on Reddit. Less than a year after he bought his house, with considerable help from our parents, he and a friend were looking at a gun in his living room. Being young and careless, his buddy pulled the trigger, blowing a nice, big hole in the refrigerator our parents bought for bro. It was a nice fridge, too. After promptly crapping himself, he and the friend hauled butt to a local second-hand appliance store and bought a reasonably similar looking fridge, which stands in his kitchen to this day. Young and careless, had a gun. Freaking people, I swear to God. When I was a kid, I was groped by my male cousin and my sister at different times. My mom was a single mother going through college and trying to end custody with my father since it was a physically abusive environment. Since the abuse happened with people on my mom's side of the family, I didn't want to stress her out and I never told her. The abuse started at age 5 and ended at age 8. When I was 17, I went to court and lost my license for what ended up being 4 years. That part they knew about. One day, when I was 18 and living in a flat with a friend about 15 km away from where my parents lived at the time, I decided that I was going to get up early the next day, catch a train and a bus back to their place early the next morning to get my car, which was in their garage. Long story short, I got really high and stayed up until about 3 AM. At this point I decided that I'd be better off staying up because I'd probably sleep through my 7 AM alarm and waste the day. Left my place at about 6 AM instead for the 2-hour journey. Got to my parents at around 8, after they'd left for work. When I got there I found that my father had taken my car to work and left his car at home. Not wanting to waste the day, I decided to take his car. First thing, I drove back to my place where I was going to have a shower and get ready. Got home and sat down on the lounge, and it turns out that I was way more tired than I'd thought. Probably had something to do with getting high all night instead of sleeping. I fell asleep. I awake to the sound of my phone ringing. It's 6:30 PM and my father is calling me. I panic and pick up the phone thinking I was busted. He was downstairs at my place, there to drop something off to me that I'd asked for earlier in the week. I grabbed his car keys from the table, stuffed them in my pocket and ran downstairs to meet him. As soon as I was done talking with him, I walked until I was out of sight and then bolted to his car, which is parked 2 streets away. I got in the car and floored it, taking a different route back to his rather than the one I knew he'd take. I called my friend who lived about halfway between my parents' place and mine. I pleaded with him to jump in the car and get to my parents' place to pick me up. I explained as much as I could in the short time that I had. I called my father and asked him to stop and check if I'd left some shoes or something in the boot of my car. After some convincing, he stopped to look for the non-existent boots. I went screaming past the one intersection I knew our paths could cross and raced to his place. Parked the car in the driveway, jumped in my mate's car and saw him driving out of his street. Luckily he didn't see me. I will never tell him this, ever. This is how I picture a modern day reboot of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. My dad recently asked me how I paid for my college when he knows I don't have a job. I'm never going to tell him that I became a local drug lord for 24 months and moved hundreds of lbs of pot through frat houses and cashed out when I was free of student loans. What did you tell the IRS? Because that's all that matters. My dog ate a whole pot cookie I left out once. My mom thought the neighbors tried to poison my dog by throwing something in a Ziploc bag over the fence since the poor pup was falling over and fainting. In reality, the pup stole my Friday night from me. I am from the UK. When I was 16, I was holidaying in Mexico and ended up banging this American girl. Flew home and obviously thought that we literally live thousands of miles away, I'll never hear from her again. I'm 25 now, and 2 years ago I got a message on Facebook from her saying that she got pregnant and had the baby and that I have a son. She sent me some pictures and he does actually look like me. I wouldn't even consider telling my parents about this until I have absolute proof that the kid is mine. But even then it would break their hearts to know they have a 9-year-old grandson they never saw. At the minute I'm kind of just playing it by ear. That I was about to commit suicide but didn't simply because I was afraid it would fail and I would end up severely handicapped. That I was frequently arped and groped by my oldest cousin from the ages between 6-10. I never knew any better for the longest time, and I only got away from it when I moved across the country. Being the only girl cousin on both sides of my family didn't help. He's about 8 years older than me. At this point I'm 21, and it's too late, and I'm just so embarrassed by it. I've told friends what happened as a child, but I never specified who. I'm still so embarrassed by it. It's something that absolutely haunts me whenever I'm at a family function and see him. You have nothing to be ashamed of. He's the one who should feel shame. When I was 8 I used to like sleeping in my grandma's bed with her because she was over 90 and had the most comfortable bed in the universe. One night I peed the bed, having one of those dreams where I pee during the dream. Don't fall into the trap, kids. When we woke up, my grandma was under the assumption that she had peed the bed and not me. I just acted like I was super understanding because of her old age. I'm sorry Mama Nene. It's really only one parent, but I never plan on telling my mother about how inappropriately my stepdad, who raised me since I was 3 years old, behaved towards me when I hit my teenage years, or how much it has fricked up the way I deal with men and sexuality. There was a lot of gaslighting involved, so I spent many years terrified to mention anything because he'd half convinced me that there was nothing inappropriate about his behavior and there was something wrong with me for being upset. Now it just seems like it's so long ago that tearing the family apart over it would serve no purpose. There are definitely awkward moments related to it. I'll be having conversations with my mom and she'll say something along the lines of, "No one would be afraid of stepdad. He wouldn't hurt a fly," or, "A few weeks ago, we had a conversation about some of my friends in high school and she started going on about how she could tell that one of them had a dad who had sexually abused her, in spite of the fact that there were never any allegations made by anyone. Because you can really just tell with some people." Meanwhile I just stared at her, not actually savoring the irony. I've also had to fake a sort of weird autistic aversion to being touched to explain why I freak out at him if he touches me. And if I ever get married, I'm going to insist on eloping so I don't have to come up for an explanation for why I don't want him walking me down the aisle. The only way I could see it possibly coming out is if I change my mind about children and have to tell her why I won't let him come near any daughter of mine. Because that's not really one you can explain away. Tell her the truth. His behavior should have consequences. You are not the one who should carry the burden. You've been spotted by the doggo of studying. Like this video for good grades for the next 2 years. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.